Gustavo doesn't like Airbnbs and he needs to hear all these stories.
It's just like you go.
You do it because you're the second one, so you are.
Hi, I'm Pauline. I'm a design strategist at UNStudio.
Hello, I'm Gustavo. I'm a senior architect at UNStudio.
Hello, I'm Cristina Garriga and I'm senior creative strategist at UNStudio.
Hi, I'm Nina Soltani, associate architect in UNStudio. We're gonna react to some videos that has been recorded in the park close to our office. So let's watch.
Hi, I'm Alexis Trucy and I work at UNStudio. And today we came to a park in Amsterdam to ask some people about what they see the future of hospitality being. Let's go find somebody and chat. And what kind of accommodations do you usually stay at?
It depends. If I go with not much of friends, I stay in a hotel. But sometimes I go with like 15 friends, and then I stay in an Airbnb.
Wow, 15 friends?
Yes.
I don't even have 15 friends to travel with. What do you think like the future of hotels or just hospitality is?
I think it's quite interesting how she describes that she's staying at hotels or Airbnbs, but actually that means so many things. Like, is it a 5-star hotel? Is it a 1-star? And also in the Airbnb, like there's so big scope of offer that we all have our own idea of what that means.
What I also find interesting is I think it's the fact that she does explain these two terms based on the experiences she would have, because what is really a hospitality and like how it's going to move toward future is mainly how it could be tailor-made for a specific users and experiences, and that could also go from like 1-star to 5-star, and then in each of them the experience is different and how it's like tailor-made to different groups and different needs. I think is interesting that she also touched on that. I think there's also the topic of the technology and then the use of, for instance, AI to help making it more tailor-made and make it like easier from the both ends, the users and then the providers of the service. And it is also like something that it's already started to come in the picture for the hospitality of now and then the future. We also look at from a design perspective and then how this flexibility, resilience and timelessness can be achieved through the design that we work on, and then how we can then make it in a sense also timeless in terms of the operation models, because the resilience and flexibility is becoming more and more a topic for these sort of offerings. And the other aspect of the resilience is also, again, how it can be tailor-made based on all of these data that we have from you. So we make sure that like your check-in is going to happen exactly the same way that you want, or you have that the specific scent that you said you liked last time.
Yeah.
Especially this is more for like the resorts and hoteling. But it is true, there's a lot of different terminologies already added, even looking at it from an architectural and design perspective.
What do you see as like the future of the hospitality business or sector?
Well, I think Airbnb is going to crash everything. So that's going to be fun to watch. Hopefully, the companies and hotels particularly, they will take some of the responsibilities, and that sustainability is not going to be a luxurious thing that customers cannot afford to pay for. I do know that in the customer segment, a lot of potential travelers are actually really willing to pay the price.
What I find interesting in this, she does really touch on another topic which we do already start to see becoming even more important, and that's the element of sustainability and environmental aspect of design and operation within the hospitality sector. And I think it is something which is very important. We do work with the projects and the clients in different parts of the world to meet the at least like certain sustainability goals and getting the certificate to ensure that this is aligned at least with like some of these standards. And it is also something that we try to work with the service providers and the hotel operators, for instance, to also advise them on not only like the architecture and the building part, which does provide those certificates, but how they can make also their operation models more sustainable and environmental friendly, without giving up, like for instance, if we talk more about the high end, without giving up the luxury of it away.
Yeah, and I think it's powerful how we're hearing someone in the park talking about this, so it's already embedded in the user, and they are demanding this. So that's really the future of hospitality. It should be in the mind of the person that requires this from the hospitality. I think that's very positive.
Yes, and the other aspect, which is in a sense connected to this environmental aspect, and I find it very, very interesting and intriguing also from a design perspective, is that she does mention the local aspect of it. And I think this is also starting to become even more and more visible from different ends, and then the request, and it's always starts from the request from the user end, that to have this local aspect. And it can be so many things. If it can be the fruits that you serve, if you already can like share something from like the local experience. Even better if it is like, for instance, when it comes to food, if it is within the perimeter of like that hospitality offering. And this is also starting to become more and more important. And yeah, she also touches on that, and I think that's interesting, and it is definitely in the future of hospitality.
Yeah, and I'm thinking this is something that we can imagine, where even hospitality could play with experiences these future scenarios that are not possible in reality in our daily lives, but like to go to a hotel and experience like a plastic-free day or a all local source, because they have this power of doing something out of the extraordinary, you know?
Yeah.
I remember once I worked with a hotelier, and he told me like a hotel should never feel like home, then we are doing something wrong. And is that the future, maybe to expand that even more into testing ground for a future world also.
The attention to the details in every, like from the moment you arrive, and then that's also what makes it a bit different than your home. And then like the fact that you are being taken care of. Even in Airbnbs, like there are all of these different terms with like super host, like all of this, that there's like all of these little things that they considered, and that does make it different. And it is different because especially if you think about like the hotels, there's like always like, even if it's the same brands of the soaps and the shampoos and like the smell products, they usually have a different line for the hotels, because there's this smell that you have when you go into hotels, and a lot of Airbnbs are also picking it up, that is different. And now there's a circle now, because there are like some of the brands that are trying to bring that hotel smell into your home, because that's something that people like. So it's always like this circle of like demand and service, and it's interesting.
Why these experiences are successful, I think it relates a lot to what we take home from an experience, which is like this first and last impression. And brands know this, and that's where we have the power to make an impact. And the first impression is because you come from a journey and you have an open mind, like you have the opportunity to establish that first impression in your long-term memory, and also the last impression also, because you have the journey back home. And whatever happens in between, it has to be okay. But as long as you have these two very strong points, then it's going to be a successful. And that's something we are really interested in our work, and we have like this brain and cognition part of our design that we look at that, and how that can really help us also in that aspect, to really make it not only on a brand level but also the architecture, right? And I think that's the climax moments, right? But where does the journey start and where does it end? This experience of the hotel can start already before arriving there, like the inspiration, like what you were saying with the super host of the Airbnb, all these words. I think there's a lot of things to touch upon, but like these two
to build up the anticipation.
How you build. It's a whole cinematic experience that you have to consider.
Yes.
Let's dive in.
Let's go.
What is the reason that you travel? For work, pleasure?
I mean, it's a mix of work and pleasure, but I find that when I travel on work, I use that as an opportunity to also explore the place a little bit before I get back home.
That's super nice.
Yeah, it's mostly for pleasure though.
Okay, and when you travel, like, what do you look for in accommodation? Like a hotel, Airbnb? What are those?
Almost always an Airbnb.
Okay.
Because then you get a flavor and a sense of the city, almost like you're a local living there. But hotels are pretty much the same regardless of which city you go to, so
Yeah.
I try to avoid hotels.
Okay, that makes sense. And like, what amenities do you look for when you're searching for an Airbnb?
Close to city center, I think location is a really big one. And it just needs to be sort of clean and functional, I guess.
I get it. What do you see the future of travel looking like?
I think a lot more, the reason Airbnb was set up was for people to share. It's almost like how couchsurfing was supposed to be. But then it's become a lot more formalized now. So I think in the future there's going to be a lot more sharing, social sharing. Pay what you feel like, and if you don't, you can just bring them a gift. So that's sort of experiences where I see society evolving into as there's more trust between people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Like you can see that he has a very distinctive need of being in proximity to certain like city elements, urban elements. So it's like to cater to that is kind of interesting because you can reduce the amount of amenities inside of the hotel while focusing more or less on creating this kind of community in the kind of public spaces. So in that kind of sense, I do see an interesting kind of like need for indeed the social engineering rather than the hospitality itself, and just really focusing on new kind of like hotel hospitality branding that is really about social engineering. So I think it's very kind of like an interesting take on how to do kind of like hospitality inside of an urban context. That's really strong.
Definitely. And I think also every environment is really unique in its context of its natural environment and its social and cultural environment. So when we develop a hospitality concept, we really put a lot of time in research and understanding local cultures and a local environment, and getting into like the little habits that people have that connect them to the environment, connect them to each other. And I think the better we're able to grasp these details in what makes that community and culture unique, the better we're able to inspire a design on that, and taking these little details and scaling them up in a design to create a shared experience that is very much inspired on a local experience.
What is the reason for travel that you usually do? Business, pleasure?
Sure, mostly for like pleasure, just vacation. So started a new job about like 8 months ago, and need my first vacation. So here I am.
Yeah, super nice. And where do you usually get accommodation?
Mostly like Airbnbs for like a more authentic like experience. Like we wanted to like get like a more traditional like Dutch place and stuff. I mean, hotels are great and all, but I kind of want that more like local feeling experience.
Yeah, for sure. And what amenities do you look for in a hotel, Airbnb?
Mostly, I guess first thing I look for is just like it feels very cozy, very homey. Also for me personally, I think practicality as well. So if they have like a laundry, in a unit laundry is like really helpful. So I could pack a little bit less too. I think hotels don't really have that usually. So.
And what do you see like the future of hotels are, like the travel industry in general, maybe?
Yeah, that's a good question. I hope that people are traveling more, so there's better business for like hotels and Airbnbs. I still think Airbnb is going to be maybe like slightly better as well too, because you can't really replace that experience of like something like more local, right? But I guess if you want a more refined experience, worry-free, then maybe like a hotel.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Of course,
You're
thank you.
such a handy man. Thank you.
Well, I think what I take from this interview is actually when you look at the two things, the Airbnb and the hotel, and how they kind of like inform each other, it's kind of interesting. It's like, well, now you see that Airbnb really hit the sweet spot with this kind of very bespoke, very like local kind of atmosphere that they have, as well as the kind of rituals and like systems they have inside of it. Like you can do your own laundry. It's like, I think there's a certain segment that says like, oh, I wouldn't do laundry, but if you make it part of the experience, people do it. So I think that that's kind of interesting. But then the response that we are looking for is like, how can you as a hospitality brand respond to all these kind of local kind of rituals and commodities in a way. So I think it's kind of interesting to really think about like, what is the next generation hotel? Can we do these bespoke things? Can we have this local experience? Like a bespoke surface that we have now with the devices that we have can actually cater more to the needs of your usage in that kind of way. So I think the future gives more way to this kind of like social engineering, but also bespoke responses to user needs.
Yeah, I think as hospitality designers, we can learn a lot from the popularity of Airbnb. I think the success really indicates that there is a different user group with different needs to account for. And that's something we look into also when developing a hotel concept or hospitality concept. So depending on where you're developing something, whether that's in the heart of a popular city or very remote, that will have an impact on what kind of visitors you attract, and learning from them will also give you information on what kind of spaces tailor best to their needs. Some destinations might be very popular for friends to travel to in groups, others might attract more families, and yeah, we have to design spaces that enable them and make their stay comfortable and efficient.
I look for location mostly, like the facilities within the hotel or the Airbnb, and also I really value when a place is clean, it's new. I like that type of stay.
Yeah, super nice. And then what do you think like the future of travel is?
I think the future of travel is more curated stays. Like I think before, I'm from Spain, so before in Spain it was a lot of like big hotels, big resorts, and I think people are going more towards like small Airbnbs owned by local hosts or smaller hotels, more curated stays.
Yeah, super nice. Thank you so much. That's
You're
all
welcome.
we needed. Thank you.
I think she touches upon quite an important change in hospitality, and I think that's people are looking for a more genuine and local experience. I think in all like retail, hospitality, like everything that's on offer for us, we see a lot of gentrification happening, and I think that's sort of the reaction to it, is that we really seek to pick out these experiences that feel genuine to us.
Yeah, I think that we really believe in this kind of hospitality where like bigness throughout an accumulation of smaller entities with smaller distinctive experiences. Like you can go to the all-day dining, but then you still have like some kind of smaller specialty restaurant that gives local food that you really have the feeling is like, yeah, actually the bread or like the dinner I had there was authentic, but it had this extra touch to it. And I think that is the kind of specialty that we're looking for, like this distinctive experience, bringing that back to a broader concept. We're just chopping it into different kind of smaller chops.
You know, I think it's really meaningful that we don't stop at the design, but with that we think beyond that and work together with the service providers, with the business aspects of hospitality, so that also together brings a strong message out and that it starts to echo this concept. We can create a beautiful design around a vision, but if the services are not aligned with that doesn't result in something genuine. So we work closely together with operators and partners to translate that design vision also onto the service level of hospitality.
I want to make a point that with AI, you're able to have more responsive and active data. So we go from like, let's say the cognitive of the smart cities to cognitive cities. And this means that we are really like able to bring you services that you never really thought about it because you were not able to interact with it like that. Now you can really say like we have almost like the bespoke concierge service will be back. And we'll be back to kind of really help you in how you are using spaces, how you are trying to explore spaces. So I think in that kind of sense, this whole kind of like the way that we see hospitality grow is also just really human, like centric, like what you want, not what the general experience in Cancun can be, no, what you want to do in Cancun and how you are behaving and interacting. So I think that kind of like more bespoke hospitality is also becoming a thing of the future, where we just not have all the pictures with the dolphins, but you can have that one thing that you're looking for. So I think in that kind of sense, like spaces will be more unique because they will cater more uniquely to the people that go there.
What do you see like the future of travel being like?
Well, I'm not sure, you know, because it can change because of climate change. So yeah, everybody wants to keep on traveling, but you never know. Like in 100 years, it could be different, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
We could be going to the moon. We don't know. So.
Yeah, cool, perfect.
I really find this interesting that he does talk about like traveling to moon, and like the moon is like referring to this unexperienced, untouched destination that is like beyond your imagination because you don't know about it yet. So then that is the future, which is actually very interesting, and this is something that I think started to become even more of like the future of hospitality after the COVID and the lockdown, because people started to explore going to remote places because that was technically the only option. But then that became also something that then it stayed even after that, and then going and exploring all of these never seen before areas more, and then also helps with building the anticipation, because in order to go to the moon you also have to do quite a trip and quite preparation, and then that I found that very interesting. And then thinking also about like new ways of traveling, because you touch upon the climate change and what is local, what is international, how are you gonna like travel, what would be the travel, which already did change in the past like 4 or 5 years, and then how can the hospitality sector keep the resilience to react to these change of request. I think that was very interesting.
Yeah, for me it talks a lot about how we are ready for more, no? Like how he's already, I think the moon, he says the moon because that's what we can put words on.
Yeah.
But I think we don't have words for many things that are coming.
It's always this loop of like the request and then the offer, and then they always feed each other. So there's like a sort of a request going to moon. We don't even know what is exactly the request, and then there's going to be something and an answer provided, and then that's going to feed back to what is like the next expectation. That's always the most fascinating thing with human being and the future, that there's no boundaries.
Yeah.
The future can be anything. It could be getting on the car and go to the moon.
And when you go there, do you stay at hotels or Airbnbs or like share a house of someone that you know?
Most of the time in hotels.
Okay.
Because you have the food as well, so you don't have to do any groceries.
Yeah.
And sometimes there are facilities like a gym or a swimming pool.
Super nice.
Which I like.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And then what do you see the future as travel being?
Well, I think people are going to be more conscious about the environment, and why do I have to go so far? While in Europe there are lots of things to be seen which are wonderful, and the climates, we have different climate. Thinking of that, I think people are going to be more in their own continents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay.
That was great.
Less travel.
I'm really shocked. I didn't expect that. I think nobody expected that.
No, it's lovely. I love that she appreciates traveling nearby and exploring locations that are near. We tend to forget or overlook it, and it's just as worthwhile.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too. I kind of agree with her. And it's fun that it's that you're so expressive about it. I do think that to take it a little bit away, like eco-travel, like being very conscious about the environment is a huge aspect of what hospitality will be like in the future. So it's like concepts of reforestation or helping to contribute to the retention of coral reef. It's something that we also see that people would just ask us to kind of research, like can we do that kind of like experience. And I think that like when I thought about it, it's like you want to work in a like planting trees or like these kind of things. It will be like a nursery. It would be very interesting to actually kind of like make that a component of the hospitality experience, because then I've been to Thailand and you see a lot of this kind of like hospitality is really devastating for the environment. What can you do to create a beautiful destination that you say like, well, you guys are actually going to help us to retain this, not only to be, let's say, the agents of saying like, well, you need to be careful, but also to just give something back. So I think that hospitality is with a component where you can give back to nature is actually something that will be very interesting for the future. So,
yeah, absolutely. I think every hospitality project has the potential to create local impact. And so to do that in a meaningful way, we always look into what are local ambitions around sustainability or social or cultural aspects, and we look for an opportunity in design to contribute to that and to not only build a beautiful hospitality experience, but also indeed use that hospitality offering as an agent for progress for a local community. So I think what you mentioned, like examples of helping protect a coral reef or having a nursery for protected species, whether it's plant or animal species, these not only contribute to a more resilient environment, but simultaneously also provide a more unique experience for travelers.